Hola a todos y bienvenidos a mi canal. Para los que no me conocen, yo me llamo LanguageSimp, soy de Estados Unidos y soy un macho alfa hiperpolíglota gigachad. Hoy vamos a hablar sobre el idioma español, or Despacito language as it's formally called. This is the 4th episode of Language Review, a series where I go through the languages of the world and review them, sort of like a film critic or a video game reviewer, but for languages, specifically from the perspective of a language learner. I'll discuss who speaks them, their grammar, their difficulty, and tons of other stuff before finally giving them an official LanguageSimp certified rating on the Simp scale. If you enjoy this video, let me know in the comments which language you'd like me to review next, and without further ado, let's begin. I'm just a stupid gringa. I failed my Spanish classes with
Señor González de los Reyes.
I couldn't survive a day in Mexico. I'm a gringo and I learned Spanish, and there's more to it than just Mexico. It's the language of Becky G, Carol G, Bad Bunny, telenovelas, the third best soccer player, and much more. Spanish is spoken by over 550 million people worldwide in over 20 diverse and unique countries, so learning Spanish will unlock an unfathomable amount of DLC to explore. The most notable piece of content you'll unlock is indisputably the GigaChad African nation of Equatorial Guinea, located only 500 miles southwest of mainland Chad. Basically, in the second millennium, Spain decided to pull in England and colonize a huge part of the world, which allowed them to spread their language to almost everywhere in the Americas, resulting in every country highlighted on this map speaking Spanish in the present day. You may be wondering, why is that giant, mysterious, and abnormal growth jutting out of South America not highlighted? Well, the Spaniards missed that country entirely. It's called Brazil now, and they don't speak Spanish there. They speak spicy Spanish. However, I honestly think that Spanish should be called Mexican because Mexico is the country with the most Spanish speakers in the world at over 120 million, while Spain only has around 40 million. And frankly, Spain should be embarrassed because even the United States of Freedom, a majority American speaking country, has more Spanish speakers than Spain at over 50 million. I personally think that we should just open our southern border entirely because Tejas used to belong to Mexico anyway, it's only fair. But in the meantime, millions of people are tragically being arrested trying to cross the Texas-Mexico border every year, so if you really want to speedrun Spanish, you could fly to Mexico and try to cross the border for fun while interacting with a ton of native speakers from all over Latin America along the way. You'd find yourself in very extreme situations, so you'd have to learn fast, and worst case scenario, you die, but if you don't, you'll be exposed to so many different accents. Speaking of which, one of the things that makes Spanish an excellent language to study is the vast array of unique and iconic accents that exist in different countries. When you're a new Spanish learner, it's like Minecraft, where you have a blank slate with the opportunity to completely reinvent yourself depending on which accent you choose. Do you want to sound Mexican, Argentinian, Colombian, Chilean, Texan? The choice is yours, so pick carefully. Personally, I chose to learn the Spanish accent from Spain, mainly because I wanted to LARP as a metrosexual European businessman with a sophisticated lisp when I talked to Latinas in Florida Walmarts. Because contrary to popular belief, Latinas don't speak Latin, they actually speak Spanish. But the opportunities are truly endless with all the accents. Allow me to give you a brief summary of the most notable ones to help you decide which to learn. Argentinian sounds like they're always singing, and it reminds me of what it would sound like if a bunch of Germans moved to South America and learned to speak Spanish with an Italian accent. Chilean speaks so fast that even just a simple hola uttered by a single Chilean in Santiago has the potential to break the sound barrier in Singapore. Cubans speak like they have a mouthful of Soviet nuclear missiles, and I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if they're not even actually speaking Spanish. Puerto Ricans mix Spanish and American so much that mi cerebro can't process lo que están saying. Spaniards sound kind of fruity, in a good way, with a gorgeous lisp, and they have very flamboyant personalities. Colombians sound really hot. I went on a date with a Colombian nanny last year, and her voice was like Uzbek to my ears, so sexy. And Mexicans sound really Mexican. I don't know how to explain it, it's just beautiful. So take your pick, you really can't go wrong with any of them. And once you've chosen an accent, you can go start studying Spanish on Speakly, a language learning platform that I'd like to thank for sponsoring today's video. Speakly is a language learning website and app designed by two hyper-polyglot gigachads that's been helping me to fine-tune my language skills. At the moment, I'm using it for Russian, but it offers Spanish and a bunch of other really popular languages like Estonian. Unlike other language learning platforms, Speakly focuses on teaching you the essential vocab you'll actually need to use in real life. It doesn't bore you and force you to memorize useless words for metaphorical seashells and Indonesian tax law. It really focuses on conversational fluency. And it offers a variety of language learning exercises that I believe will dramatically speed up your language acquisition. Speakly is available for both web and mobile for Android and iOS, and there's a free 7-day trial, so at least click the link in the description to try it out. You won't lose anything, and if after 6 days you're not satisfied, just cancel it. Thankfully, all Spanish-speaking countries pretty much speak the same core language, except for Cuba, where they might actually be speaking Esperanto, but who knows? I've never understood a word any Cuban has ever said, and it's honestly not even worth trying. I won't succeed. So now let's talk about the alphabet. Spanish is written in a slightly modified version of the American alphabet, where for some reason they have 2 N's, and they put a little Cheeto puff on top of the second one. They also have goofy names for some of the classic letters, such as this E, which they call A, which is very confusing. And also the B and the V are pronounced exactly the same. Why the f? Also, in some countries, a few of the letters have different pronunciations. For example, in most accents, the J is pronounced like a wimpy little H, just like ha ha ha. But in the GigaChad country of España, it's pronounced rough and tough and manly, like you're choking on an enchilada. In most countries, the S, C, and Z are pronounced the same, like s, but in Spain, the C's and the Z's make the infamous and gorgeous lisp sound, el acento con la mejor pronunciación de la C y la Z. In normal Spanish, the Y and the double L both make the Y sound, like y, but in Argentina, the Y and the double L make the sh sound. I like Argentina, but they gotta stop doing that. The only real problem learners run into with the pronunciation is the rolled R, like So many monolingual betas think they'll never be able to pronounce it, but if you listen to the following advice, you'll be able to do it instantly. Simply pronounce an R, and now roll it. Did you get it? Pronunciation isn't the only thing that differs between countries. Each country also has its own unique vocab, which can be confusing at times. There's innocent examples, like how in Spain this is called a coche, but in Argentina it's called an auto, and in most other countries it's called a carro. But other times the differences, especially with regional slang, may leave other speakers feeling very uncomfortable. For example, it wouldn't be uncommon for a Spaniard to say something like, "Tío, me cago en la leche. Tengo mucha pasta." And a Mexican could very well reply, "¿Qué pedo, güey? Qué padre que tengas tanta lana." My Mexican accent is incredible. At least most of the vocab is the same between countries, and a ton of Spanish vocab was directly stolen from Americans, so it should be easy to learn. But the vocab won't be useful if you can't speak with proper grammar, and interestingly enough, even the grammar can differ between countries. For example, the word for you plural informal is vosotros in Spain, but it's ustedes in Latin America. When I was dog water at Spanish in the beginning, I remember people used to make fun of me at Walmart and say I was pretentious or cringe for using vosotros as an American. Which was true, because I was literally lying and telling Latinas that I was from
Andalucía,
deep in the toilet paper aisle. Another example is how most normal countries like Mexico, Spain, and Peru use the word tú to mean you in the singular form, while a bunch of quirky countries, mainly Argentina and this chicken wing looking region of Central America, started using the word vos instead of tú. And I am not a fan. If anyone online says or types vos to me, I block them instantly. Using vos would add a boatload of conjugations for me to learn, and I've already learned enough of them. According to my mathematical calculations, and keep in mind, I was an engineer for a year, each verb in Spanish has about 108 different potential forms it could take when conjugated. If you're a GigaChad like me, this doesn't intimidate you and you'll learn them quickly because there are indeed patterns. For example, a verb that ends in ER, like the verb comer, to eat, will take on these endings when conjugated. But let's just focus on the present first person conjugation so you can see the pattern. To say I eat, you drop the ER and add an O, yo como. For the verb beber, which means to drink, you drop the ER and add an O, yo bebo. Easy, right? Now that you got the hang of it, you try one. Mantener means to maintain. Can you conjugate it like the others? Wow, are you from Equatorial Guinea? You're right, just drop the ER and add an O, yo manteno. Wait, no, what the heck? No, that's wrong, you silly goose, you're lost. It's mantengo. Yeah, this language has a ton of irregular verbs, which normally wouldn't be too bad, but when I found out that this language not only has a subjunctive conjugation, but also a future and past subjunctive conjugation, I dropped my taco. If you don't know what these are, good. Please preserve your innocence as long as you can. Other aspects of grammar aren't that bad. As a Romance language, Spanish does of course have two genders, because as always, a book is obviously a man and Christmas is obviously a woman. Now it's time to talk about shock factor. How will native Spanish speakers react react to you speaking their language. Spanish is very widely studied around the world, especially in the United States. Therefore, you won't be that unique if you learn it. So will a native shit their pants, give you their kidney, and offer to marry you if you speak it well as if it were Chinese? Yeah, honestly, they will. It's kind of a paradox. In my experience, native Spanish speakers are very shocked when a foreigner speaks their language at a decent level. They're surprisingly impressed when a gringo speaks Spanish, probably because every kid in America watched Dora the Exploradora growing up, so they already know a few words like taco, bandito, and comprende. But when a silly little gringo speaks it coherently with a good accent, it's a pleasant surprise. Just before you attempt to go YouTube polyglot shock people in public, try to figure out where they're from, because if they're from Chile or Cuba, you're not going to understand a word. Spanish, more than any other language, has so much more to talk about, but I must keep these episodes at a good length, so it's time to give Spanish an official Language Simp certified rating on the Simp scale. On a scale of dog water to Giga Chad, I place Spanish solidly in the alpha tier. I learned it because I love it so much. It's gorgeous, has so much diversity, and it's not terribly difficult. It's also usable in my country, which is a huge plus, but there are other languages that I simp for more. If you enjoyed this video, consider supporting me on Patreon, where I make language learning tips and tricks videos, and join my Discord. The most Giga Chad language learners hang out there every day. Adios, amigos.